If you're having difficulty with traffic and other city management issues while growing a city, if you're looking for game tips and inspiration for your builds, then this series may be what you're looking for. Greetings, fellow mayors, and welcome back to Noyou Port City, a narrative gameplay experience. To recap the previous episode, we established a level of 5 forestry, which stabilized our bank and weekly income. We also expanded our territory with low-density residential until we reached the Big Town milestone, which unlocked the high-density zoning and a new game tile. The current state of the game is we are at 95% traffic flow at about 9,000 population. The only major alerts that we have are an imbalance of forestry goods, which we will remedy by expanding a little further while establishing a farming industry. There appears to be a few fire outbreaks throughout the city, which we can easily remedy by purchasing a new large fire station that I will plop temporarily just right here. According to the city demands, our first order of business is to create more homes for Sims that want to move in our growing city. But instead of redeveloping our lower half, I actually want to immediately start populating the banks of our river. We'll go ahead and unlock this tile so we could start the farming industry when the demand appears. This episode will really start to exploit mods like Move It and the Quay Anarchy mod. Mimicking the bank of the river design is still possible in vanilla, but of course it will take much longer and will require more calculating. Whether or not you plan to have fishing harbors or ferries, always remember to lower the bank of your river. My way to help fellow mayors to remember this, by quote, is to save sim knees by lowering the coastline. For now, the banks of our river is lowered enough. With the power of Move It mod, we could always adjust the height of our quays, roads, and structures when necessary. For modded PC players, this is not anything new, but for me, this is the first series that I am publishing on YouTube with light modded gameplay. For this third episode, there are still so many things that we need to establish and stabilize. Other than having a decent bank and weekly income so we could afford nice things, the city still does not have a single school, and we also need to clean up our garbage and sewage facilities. Regarding education, the current jobs available are mostly industrial and some low-density commercial. These job positions in Cities Skylines do not require any education. Therefore, our primary goal is still to stabilize our bank and weekly income. What we are looking for is to get 10 to 50,000 weekly income, and this is easily obtainable with Industries DLC. Offices also fulfills industrial demands. However, the income from offices, which requires university level education, still is no match to what Industries DLC can earn in a weekly basis. Therefore, the overall plan is to first develop all industrial types. Our residential demands have dropped while industry demands have spiked, so we are currently building our farming industry. But unfortunately, we do not have a tile available to unlock this corner, so we will have to do with the space available. Regarding the layout on the bank of our river, I created a large empty corner which we can repurpose to adding a unique building and whatnot. We still do not have the funds available, so for the meantime, we are focusing our efforts to populating the bank of the river while leveling up our farming industry. I zoned in high density residential and I used a fence on the road closest to the river, so the second road will have 4x4 zoning available. I am also going to add inland quays with stairs, so instead of a terrain slope, we can use the second level appropriately like in Fisher Enclave City. Sims can walk up and down between levels utilizing the walkable paths built in the quays with stairs. I am literally just plopping down buildings just to fulfill the required worker and produced resource count. This unlocked corner tile is a nuisance because I cannot appropriately create my road layout. I also cannot expand closer to the residential area, otherwise the Sims may start to complain about noise pollution. Nevertheless, we also still need level 5 farming, which will unlock all farming related facilities, and then we can start finalizing a layout design. Despite the fact that the city demands are for more industry, we will actually return to populating the bank of the river. It takes time for Sims to fill in the job positions in the farming industry, so we should leave it alone for a while and give it some time for the jobs to fill in. So instead of a cliff or a slope terrain, we will really start to make use of the quays with stairs. And as I mentioned earlier, on the second level will be for a large, unique building or several structures that will overlook the river. Another excellent feature of our river is the new bridge from the Bridges and Piers content creator pack. With these new bridges and quays, creating a canal city is much more feasible in vanilla gameplay. And we have reached level 4 farming, and it is only a matter of time before we reach the max level. We, however, have a predicament. We are slowly becoming flat broke, and that is something no one would ever want to say out loud. Our coffers are running dry, and we occasionally have negative income. And on top of that, the city still wants more industry, but we cannot afford to purchase any more buildings. We have the option to take a loan, but I will keep this as a final resort. Another issue that we have is to unlock this tile. We are about 7,000 short to reaching 18,000 to unlock this tile. And the only good news that we have is that our traffic flow is holding at 92% with just our triangle about, and this is the only way in and out of the city at 10,000k pop. To remedy our financial woes, first we need to raise our taxes up to 12%, because any greater, the Sims would get upset and eventually decide to vacate or abandon their homes or establishment. And to fulfill this industry demands, we are going to create a farming industry. So first, we will do a regular zone district on the area where we want to create our farming. Then we will go to the industrial specialization, click on the farming industry, click into the district. Then any industry that we zone in will appear as farming. And so instead of the yellow dirty industry appearing, we will have farms instead. And just like that, our industry demands has dropped and our residential demands are climbing. However, the backlash of having these industrial farming is there will be more trucks. So you can basically count each building to having one truck. And that is not a good thing, which is why Industries DLC is still always the best way to earn money with the industrial or office demands. Now let's take a look at the traffic that's building up with all the additional trucks, and our traffic flow is now at 90%, 91. It's barely holding on, so we need to do something really quick just to prevent that from getting any worse. I am going to create an alternate exit on this side of the map. So we're just going to create a generic exit. And actually this, I have plans to redo this whole thing. I mentioned that I want to redo this as well because I find this angle to be extremely odd. I want this highway to actually go straight, and maybe it'll connect here instead. And then this avenue or collector will just go through the highway, over or under. And this one, this highway is also a little too close to our river, so I want to build something like this along our river, so that's going to be the same here. And this highway is actually in the way, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this to go straight over, and then we are going to have the highway actually connect on this side instead. So I do not want this here, therefore the road that we are going to currently create will be temporary, and it wouldn't matter what our design will be. Nevertheless, it will serve its purpose, and that is to bring our trucks to leave the area at a quicker route. Okay, let's check our traffic flow. We're at 87%. Let's check. That's most likely traffic lights. There we go. Let's turn that off. Oops. All right, let's check our traffic flow now. Well, actually, we have to give it a while. Let's look. There appears to be more lights. See, this stop is not really doing anything. It's not even necessary. All right, let's turn off all the stops. Okay, now let's check how it's going. We're at 95% after we turned everything off, which is absolutely great. Eventually we want to connect up here so they don't all just like flood into this area, and we definitely plan to occupy, so this tile unlock will be all more of the other industrial types, and it will consume some of here as well. So that is the overall plan. We have, let's check out our resources. We have ore here, we have oil here. Even though we have oil on this, it doesn't seem to be an appropriate place to add oil or have any oil facilities along the river. It'll be much better if we utilize that for residential, and we are now level 5. It'll be more beneficial if we use that for residential, and we're gonna have ferries going along. Our river seems a little wanky, but we're gonna see what happens once we populate this more appropriately. And so with that level 5, we now have about 5k stable income. We don't necessarily need to build more here. I would want to redesign our farming and expand a little more of our forestry, but we really need that 18,000. So we are just gonna go back and just populate the city. Things are starting to look up. Our weekly income is now in the positive, and it sometimes reaches up to 20,000 per week, and as a result, our bank is growing. With our newfound fortune, we will use to construct schools, public transportation, unique buildings, and all the fun things that we can now afford. Our residential demands are also through the roof that we could hardly catch up in zoning more homes for our Sims. It is highly recommended that if any of your demands are maxed, you should pause the game or set it at ×1 game speed so you can zone the required demand of the city. I, on the other hand, am keeping the ×3 game speed just to build up more bank, but at some point, I really should play the game on ×1 speed. Unfortunately, our roads are no longer aligned from the bank of the river to the upper levels. And to keep our roads visually appealing, we must restructure our roads as soon as possible before the residential buildings level up. So while they are still level 1, now is the best time as any to restructure and redevelop. So as I was starting to create a district park when I noticed a few issues in the city. But first, let us put the game speed on ×1 and address the lack of water and the unconnected buildings. As I was saying, the most grave dilemma that we have is that the city is enduring a death wave. We have been in naughty mare because we have not been plopping down enough death care throughout the city. However, this map's milestone is very peculiar because the crematorium is not available until 18,000 population. While at most other maps, it is available at 12,000 population. Now, this is absurd because that means that if you are playing vanilla, you cannot empty your cemeteries. Otherwise, if you do try to empty a cemetery, it will just transfer to another. Therefore, until we reach 18,000 population, we will have a ridiculous number of cemeteries in the city. I have just basically plopped down a cemetery every 2 blocks, which is not very inviting for you to come into the city. There's going to be that one guy saying, what we need are more cops, not more graves. And with that note, the other issue that we have are burnt down ploppable structures. So these buildings do not self-demolish. You will have to repurchase the building unless you have a disaster response unit building from the Disasters DLC. What happens is it will fly in a rescue helicopter, search for survivors, then you can rebuild the structure for free. I intended to utilize this space for something a little more fancy, but creating a center for a disaster response building sprinkled with a police and fire department nearby is much more beneficial to the city now than later. This will at least pacify that one citizen that protested that this city needs more police and fire department presence than they need more coffins. And while we are at it, I have included a police and fire helicopter depots. The large police station and the police helicopter depot both have the same maintenance cost. But of course, a police helicopter can reach its destination much more quickly, while a police car will have to maneuver through traffic. Therefore, when you can afford it, add a few helicopter depots to your city. However, you will still need police stations because a helicopter depot does not have any jail cells. Another option is to build a prison. Then you will need at least one police station to transfer prisoners to the prison. Then you can have more helicopter depots than stations. Hold on, there is something amiss transpiring. Why do we have 0 water? We literally have 0 water. Are our water towers on fire in the forestry industry? Is there another mafia war happening and someone decided to sabotage the city's water supply? Alright. Okay, our water towers are not on fire and there doesn't seem to be any power disconnections. Let's actually check the electricity, and it is in the red. Okay, are our power plants on fire, or do we just lack electricity? Okay, we just lack power, and oh my shame, how embarrassing this corner is. There is absolutely 0 design, 0 respect, and my only defense is that I really want to concentrate on the riverbank, but we keep getting interrupted with city needs. And look, we still have a massive demand of residential housing. Oh, the juggling that we have to do in this season. Nonetheless, the progress is realistic. You are witnessing the early developments of the city and its struggles to achieve greatness. I am really just so excited about this riverbank, but we haven't even detailed it yet. But imagine the high density buildings leveled up along the coastline, and of course, the buildings will be taller. Then imagine traveling by ferry, and I haven't even added the other transportation that I want to use in this area. When I develop districts, I always consider the scenic view, especially with transportation. And what makes this season different from the others is that we have a narrow river to sail our ferries, a very cool bridge to travel under, new Mr. Mason trees to plant, and the new quays. My vision for this city is epic, and I am just happy to share my ideas to everyone watching. Okay, we occasionally need to take a step back and observe the city from time to time because the city is still unstable at this stage. So we don't have any issues in our residential area except for this hideous corner. Our forestry appears to be doing fine, but let's check our water. And it's actually slightly low, so we'll go ahead and add more water towers in areas where there are no pollution producing facilities. So all our water, drinking water, and waste management are inland, so we do not pump water into from or secrete water into the rivers or oceans. So our electricity is good. This cemetery needs to be emptied out. It will just transfer to another cemetery, but we need to restructure our road layout according to the bank of the river. We haven't rebuilt this one. Other than that, we also have garbage issues on this side, which makes sense because all our waste facilities is all the way at the other end of the city. So therefore, I will create a new garbage area right here. I have no intention of unlocking this tile. So before starting any new area, you should always check the terrain, and there is a slope here. Therefore, we will construct here instead. We are going to use the Japanese waste disposal unit from the content creator pack and mix in other waste related facilities. This is not recommended, but for the sake of the viewers, I would just purchase all new buildings, but of course, you would save money if you just transfer buildings from the other corner. For any areas where you expect to have constant traffic, reduce the number of intersections, which will make the vehicle routes more smooth. This applies especially for industrial areas. Our waste area has a very basic layout, but it is effective, organized, and utilizes different buildings with the same purpose. I like how the sewage facilities are in one block while the other facilities that produces steam are clustered together in the next block. This was an extremely expensive project. Look at our bank, and our weekly cost is over 20,000 in the negative. So we'll have to go back to the other waste facility and delete the obsolete electricity producing buildings and set the landfills on empty and leave at least 2 incinerators to empty the landfills. While the others, I will turn everything off, and we can just redesign this area when the landfills are empty, then just rejig the structures. Alright, let's double check our electricity. It is maxed, and let's check our waste. Okay, it is might be a little too high, so let's go ahead and delete some of these. This is not actually connected. That is alarming. There you go. Disaster averted. Alright, let's turn a few more of these off. Okay, so now we shouldn't have to worry about services for a long while. We have our income producing industrial areas, we have a waste facility, and we also have a security and emergency services center. We can now focus our energy to meeting the city's demands for adding more residential housing. So many things have transpired in this episode, or rather, there have been so many interruptions that prevented us from properly expanding. At least now we can build in peace. The only other two things the city needs for stability are schools and crematoriums, then we can just totally be free to build with less interruptions. At least now, bank and weekly income is not so much of an issue, and we will just need to reach milestones to unlock more structures. We are now a small city and have unlocked the trains, monorail, and train stations content creator pack. But before we end the episode, let us do a little decorating and make use of the first public transportation for our city, which will be trolley buses. I will just plop down the bus depot right here, and we are also going to plop down a taxi depot. So let's create a short route, and we will make use of this taxi stands as our bus stops. I just want to create an example of how I want to design our riverbank, which is now going to be called the Canal. Don't forget that our quays are walkable and we need to provide paths to get to the quays, and we want to give our sims a reason to use the quay, so I will plop down a few pair of pier assets. There will be a ferry route in the future, so we will need to place the piers where the river, or I mean canal, is wider. We'll need to plant some trees, but we don't want it to be just a line of trees, so we will break it up by adding a few commercial zoning. We will create a district just along the river, which is, as I mentioned, which is now a canal, and we will declare this as the local and organic produce type, then randomly zone a few locations. Cool, alright, now let's plant some of the new Mr. Mason trees, and I choose the coconut tree for our main visual along this bus route. Coconut trees are not too tall and are not too short, and we'll give it about 20-meter distance from each other. I'll just design a short portion just to give you an idea on how it will look like, then we will jump to a time jump after everything is decorated. We can also add bushes and scatter a few rocks for variety. When public transportation is planned properly, it will reduce the number of vehicles on the road, thus reducing your city traffic. To reduce traffic is the main core purpose for adding public transportation, but it is also an opportunity to plan a tour around your city. In all the cities that I completed, we do not build roads, we create a journey. Try to make a scenic public transportation route, make the commute enjoyable, convince your sims to leave their vehicles at home. And when your city is completed, not only would you have a great bird's eye view of your city, you would also have a ground level sim view while traveling around the town. This is just the beginning of our scenic route on the bank of the canal, decorated with coconut trees, bushes, and fences. As we develop the city, there will be a ferry route which will provide another point of view, and eventually we will add unique buildings along the canal to create a magnificent journey. Until then, if you are kind enough to support the channel, feel free to subscribe, comment, and like. This is Captain Obvious, and thank you for being a part of the fourth journey on creating Noyou Port City. You all take care, and I'll see you in the next video.